the villains have finally taken over in the Marvel Universe. And no, I'm not talking about the Disney acquisition. Today we'll be talking about Marvel's Dark Reign The Cabal on It's a Kind of Garbage podcast, Comics Edition.
It's a kind of...
I was reading some Marvel titles during this time, which was 2008-2009. This was probably one of the last Marvel events that I bought the comics for. Just to give you a bit of a quick catch-up, Civil War has happened. Now if you have superpowers in the Marvel Universe, you have to register them with the government. After Civil War happens, Secret Invasion happens, where Marvel's shape-shifting villains, the Skrulls, have infiltrated armies and governments and superhero teams around the world. Basically planted the seed of dissent, I guess, amongst the superhero population on who they can trust. That event ends with Tony Stark being kicked out of power as like the world's #1 superhero, and the Spider-Man villain Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, saving the day, and then essentially getting voted into power to be the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. During the last two events, Civil War and Secret Invasion, there was a Marvel, I don't know if I'd call them a team, but there was kind of like a Marvel group that called themselves the Illuminati, which was made up of heads of all the superhero teams. So there was Iron Man, Mr. Fantastic, Professor Xavier, Black Bolt, Namor. I think there was a couple other.
Was Beast on it?
A Beast replaced Xavier at one point.
Okay.
And I just thought of the other guy's name. And Black Panther was on it. And Doctor Strange. So they were all representatives of kind of different fields of like the Marvel Universe. And they failed. But in failing, they gave birth to almost a dark version of the Illuminati, which was after Norman Osborn takes over, he assembles a group of assorted Marvel supervillains and basically says, look, I'm the guy in charge of hunting you or making you, like trying to make you accountable for your actions. If we play ball, we can all win. No one has to lose. No one has to fight. And we can kind of rule the world behind the scenes. So this comic picks up after the Cabal, that they call themselves, has started to fall apart. The villain's true nature has taken over and they are now falling apart. Adam, what did you think of this comic?
I liked it because you got to see Doctor Doom and Namor, the two of them talking about how they're going to portray Norman Osborn.
Yeah, so they've basically, Namor was part of the Illuminati, but due to his like kind of anti-hero position in the Marvel Universe, he's also part of the Cabal. Not only is he part of the group of superheroes that dictates policy, he's now part of the group of supervillains that dictate policy. And he's reached some sort of plan. He's reached some sort of deal with Doctor Doom that Norman Osborn's rule will come to an end and that they'll be left to kind of pick up the pieces, and instead of fighting, they should come to an agreement now on who gets what.
Yeah, the stories in this book, I really enjoyed the first story, the main one that we're talking about. There were some, I won't say sub-stories, there were other stories throughout the book where they were very dry, and because I didn't know what was happening, like there's a story with Namor and like these two parents and their kid, and I was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
The Emma Frost one with her being like the Phoenix Go, I didn't care, but this one was good.
Yeah.
Where, yeah, Norman calls the two of them being like, hey, you guys are here, like you're the only two that showed up, no one else did. And then I think it was Doom that's like, we don't like maybe they don't like the company that you're keeping with you. And it just shows all of basically his Avengers, more or less, right?
Yeah.
Right behind him.
So he's assembled a team because he's the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. and S.H.I.E.L.D. is now like the parent company of the Avengers. It shows Norman Osborn's Avengers, who are all villains masquerading as like the new and improved versions of the Avengers.
Yeah, Sentry plays Sentry.
Yeah, the Sentry was one of those ambiguous characters who was kind of, he never really knew if he was a good guy or not.
Yeah, then you had Daken as Wolverine, Venom as Spider-Man,
Yeah.
Bullseye as Hawkeye, and he has the bullseye still on his forehead, which I hate.
Yeah.
Every single time I see that, his suit, I'm like, why does it need to be on your forehead?
Yeah.
And then who played, is it Miss Marvel? It's Miss Marvel, right?
Yeah, so Miss Marvel was a villain named Moonstone.
Okay.
So all of them, like their respective hero they're portraying, they all have like a grudge against them. So Norman is basically, minus the Sentry, Norman has basically said to them, like, there's no greater thing you could do to damage your hero than pretend to be him and just destroy his reputation. Like, even if things go bad, like, no one will ever trust these heroes again after they find out what you've been doing.
Was the Red Hood on the Cabal originally?
Yeah, so Red Hood was on the Cabal. That was more tie-in comics. The Red Hood was kind of a street-level villain who gets access to, I'd say, like, almost an evil version of Doctor Strange's cloak.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so he has access to a cloak, and I can't remember if it's Dormammu or Mephisto or who it is, but basically while he's wearing the cloak, he's granted, like, insane power, but with the insane power, like, the demon is kind of, like, taking control of him slowly as he uses it. So it's obviously, like, an incredibly powerful artifact. He has no idea what the repercussions are that he's using it. So Norman's confronting Dr. Doom and Namor. Doom is now wearing the Red Hood's cloak, and we get a little cutscene of Doom is just murdering the Red Hood and stealing the cloak off of him.
And there's in the book there is a story of the Red Hood, but he looks just like a dude walking around with his hood.
Yeah.
He never gets like to the point where he looks almost like a demon.
Yeah. I think there were a couple of times where it referenced that, like, he's literally, like, there's a demon taking over, but he doesn't realize it. He just assumes that's what the power is. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Doom pulls out what's it called, the Cosmic Cube?
Yeah, the Tesseract or the Cosmic Cube.
Yeah, and Namor's just like, are we doing this right now?
Yeah.
Which the fact that he just spoke out like this, like, we're doing this right now? It's like, so if your plan backfires now, they know you're in on it because you're like, oh, okay, let's do it.
Yeah, so Doom and Namor, more so Doom, just goes, all right, like, this is my moment where I think Norman Osborn is weak enough that this is kind of the moment where I push him over the edge and take over. So Doom pulls out, I think it's the Tesseract, and just transports all of the Avengers to, like, the opposite side of the galaxy.
And then he strips down Norman Osborn's power suit off of him.
Yeah.
So it's just like a little man in undies laying on the floor, and Namor's just like, I guess, and just like, what's that? His trident. He just stabs him right in the heart.
Yeah. So after
I laughed at this page that we're about to talk about.
Yeah. So after that, Doom has basically single-handedly defeated the Avengers and Norman Osborn. And then off. Kind of like through flashback, he's also murdered the Red Hood. Namor is just looking at him being like, well, what do we do with the rest of the Cabal? And the rest of the Cabal is Loki, who's been forced by Odin to take a female form, and Emma Frost, who's representing the X-Men. So Namor asks Doom, like, well, what do we do about Loki and Emma Frost? To which Doom replies, I've taken care of them. And it cuts to a page of them in, like, kind of like a
throne room?
It's Doom's throne room, and they're chained up like pets in front of it, and they're chained up like kind of like Princess Leia in Return of the Jedi, like Jabba style.
I was trying to figure out, look, I didn't know who they were at first until I got down the road, but I still didn't know that was Loki. I just thought it was a woman with black hair. I thought it was Elektra at first.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, it's supposed to be the remaining members of the Cabal, which are female Loki and Emma Frost.
Very problematic.
Problematic, but it doesn't...
Yeah, I have them wearing... Like, Emma Frost doesn't have a shirt on there, right? No, she doesn't. She's using the... Actually, I don't think she even has a... No, she has a bottom portion. But yeah, he's like, oh, I got the ladies naked in my lair. That's literally what he's done.
Well, we cut to them. This is all happening in the Avengers Tower, which Norman owns. So now we cut to Doom and Namor walking to the rooftop, where Namor is about to get in one of the Avengers jets and fly back home. And as he's flying home, he just kind of says, like, casually, casually, like, you're always scheming, Doom. Like, I wonder what goes on inside your head. And then it cuts to a fantasy of Doom murdering, just strangling Namor, kind of showing what his future plans are for him.
And Doom says, Doom, always Doom.
Yeah, I'm always thinking of myself. And the whole kind of premise to this comic is that from the first panel of Namor and Doom having their initial conversation of, so how is this whole Cabal thing going to plan out? From that moment forward, this is all a fantasy inside Doom's head. Like, this is Doom coming up with his schemes of, okay, this is what I'll do. Like, this is how I would take them down if I were forced to take them down. Which, I really enjoy Doom as a character. I think he's a really fun villain. And I think he's a really good foil to a lot of the Marvel superheroes. Like, he bounces off Iron Man really well. He bounces off the Fantastic Four really well. And he also bounces off a character like Namor or the Black Panther that are both royalty in the Marvel Universe because Doom has declared himself royalty. So I just think he's a really good all-purpose villain, and he's so self-centered. And I always got a kick out of this one shot just because it just shows kind of what's going on in his mind. And I think it does a really good job of what Doom, like in Doom's fantasies, he just one-shots the entire Avengers. Like, he takes a super... Like, later on in Dark Reign, he fights the Sentry and just gets the shit kicked out of him. But in Doom's planning, like, his planning is so flawed just because of how big his ego is, that in his planning, he goes, okay, when Norman sicks the Avengers on me, I'll just take them out with one shot. And it's like, that's insane, too.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the story.
What did you think of the art?
The art, I thought, it's standard Marvel. Who drew it?
He's a guy named Adi Granov. I like him. I would say I knew of him through, he illustrated an Iron Man comic called Iron Man Extremis, which was very good because it was a very Iron Man suit focused comic. And he does like power suits very well. Like, his costume work, his suit work, especially for like the Iron Man suit or Doctor Doom's armor, looks well. I would say that like one of his weaknesses is it's kind of his strength for the suits is that a lot of his work does look a little flat, which when you're drawing something that's supposed to be angular and flat, like armored suits, it looks well, but some of the characters' faces are a little too flat. Like, you don't really read a lot of depth into them.
I think he might have done a Cable book or two, because it looked really familiar.
Yeah, he did a lot of, I don't know what he's doing right now, but I know during this period he was doing tons of cover work for Marvel. He did a bunch of Fantastic Four covers, a bunch of Iron Man covers.
So do you have any final thoughts before we get to ranking?
No, not really. I mean, I always just enjoyed that as... I think looking back at it, because I haven't really kept up with Marvel, and I kind of... Dark Reign was one of the Marvel books that really kind of, like, gave me event fatigue. Like, I kind of really got tired of, like, look, I can't follow all these books to just see what's going on. Marvel did do a better job later on by kind of streamlining some of the events, but that was during period when I was reading Marvel and following the events, and I liked it. It just kind of... It's kind of like, you know, seeing the same movie too many times in a row where you're like, okay, I get the trick. Like, the entire world's in danger and you're going to make all the comic books tie in, which definitely was a strength for Marvel. Like, they were doing that more so than DC. And they kind of took that idea into the Marvel movies, which was like, what if instead of all the comics tying into each other during an event, what if we make the movies like an event where the movies are all tying in as well? So I see why Marvel does it. It obviously like is paying for them, but as a reader, it kind of came off as like a bit of a trick. And after you've done it, because they were doing, I think, 2 a year at one point. So if you read comics for 3 years, if you follow Marvel for 2 or 3 years, you've gone through 6 or 7 of these events or like, you know, tie-in or crossovers or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
And you definitely like start to get the fatigue from it where you're like, I don't care anymore.
That was one of the things I liked about a lot of the X-Men books, where it was just the X books that they kept together, where you didn't have lots of the Avengers kicking in.
Yeah.
And whatnot. Yeah. I guess for my ranking, and I have to try and remember, number 1 is still Terra Salter, number 2 is X-Woman, number 3 is the albino spider of Djet, and number 4 is Ravage. So this I would put, like, this part of the one-shot, I really enjoyed it. I would still put it at number 5, so it would be on the bottom of my list.
Yep.
Just because I never read any of Dark Reign. It's all Avengers. I don't care about Avengers, but
yeah, no,
I like Doom.
Yeah.
I like Namor. And, yeah, all the other guys, like Norman Osborn, when he's in a Spider-Man role, I think he's fine. When he's like, I'm king of the world, Norman, I don't care.
Yeah, fair enough. Like I said, this was kind of happening right during the event fatigue for me. So reading this, like, I thought it was really cool just to get a small, digestible slice of a story that just focused on a handful of characters. I could see, yeah, like, it would be hard to recommend this story to someone if they weren't following Dark Reign, which eventually, I guess that's kind of my main problem with Marvel right now, is it's almost hard to recommend good books to people because you have to hand it to them and kind of explain, like, the last 6 events, which I know they've cleaned up a little bit, but it was hard. Like, it was fun to talk about Marvel books with other Marvel people, but it was very hard to recommend interesting, well-done comics to people without being like, you're not gonna have any idea what's going on, but read this because it's fun. And it's like, okay, I read it. Who is this person? And who are these people? And, like, why is this person doing this again? And it's like, oh yeah, like, it was not a very welcoming comic for, like, new readers. Which I think Marvel's since tried to fix that, I think some of their stuff is more accessible. But yeah, if you're a Doom fan and you feel like doing a little bit of research into Dark Reign, I thought it was a fun little Doom side story. I would rank it number 3 for me. So behind X-Women, Terror Assaulter, and then ahead of Ravage and Albino Spider.
Nice. So our next episode after this one is a comic book that I picked that I have lots of comics that are based on movies, TV shows, video games at home. And I don't own this one yet. I really want it. It's issue 1 from Topps Comics. The guys who made, baseball cards?
Yep.
It's GoldenEye, issue 1. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed our talk of... I already forgot the name. Oh, shit. Dark Reign The Cabal.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
As always, you can find us online through our social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram, both at A Kind of Garbage. You can also email us at akindofgarbage@gmail.com with any questions or comments you may have. Be sure to check us out at akindofgarbage.com, where you can find links to our Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube pages, as well as our Patreon page at patreon.com/akindofgarbage, where you can get access to our private Discord channel and Patreon exclusive podcasts. Thank you again for joining us, and be sure to tune in next time.